that's going to be very important in terms of your personal statement, is going to be crucial, I think, to helping the admissions committees understand this picture that they're seeing. Hello, Melina.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm a little bit nervous, but I know we're gonna dive into it.
Well, we are. Where are you calling us from today?
I'm from the Lansing, Michigan area. Oh, right now I'm in the Lansing, Michigan area. I'm from the Grand Rapids area in Michigan.
Oh, okay. I've actually been to Grand Rapids before. It's a pretty
nice city.
Yeah, it's a smaller city, and it's I was very impressed with it. And I was actually there in the winter, so it was very cold, and so but yeah, it's very delightful. Seems like a delightful place. And so
I like that it's like a small city with a little bit of big city feel and access. So.
And not too far from the lake, right?
Right. Yeah. I think it's only
45 minutes or so?
Less?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Well, that's cool. Well, good. Well, we're going to spend some time together today and talk a little bit about your where things are with you, and try to get a sense of who you are academically and otherwise, and make hopefully some conclusions about what I think relative to your application pending, how that's going to go, and give you some ideas of my thoughts. So does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Good. So we'll take a look at, I know we've got Mapped pulled up, and so we're going to look at your Mapped account and sort of examine a little bit about you. We'll start off with the GPA graph and stuff. And the immediate thing I see, now we see AMCAS GPA, we see a cumulative GPA just over 2.5, so 251, and a science GPA of 2.26. But I see essentially what I would consider two graphs here. We have a first half of your graph, which has some rockiness to it. And then we have a second half of your graph, which looks a lot different than the first half of your graph. And then we're going to talk in a minute a little bit about the things that we don't see on this graph that we'll look at on the detailed graphs. But tell us a little bit about what's going on this graph and what the story is here.
So the beginning's a not so uncommon story where I never really had to study in elementary school and high school that much. So the initial below 3.0 there is me figuring out how to study at community college. And then where it starts to kind of dip down, I moved out of my parents' house and struggled living on my own. And my roommate my roommate at the time had some congenital health issues that really started to affect her. So where you really see it dip down was where I was working 50, 60, 80-hour shifts because she couldn't work.
Wow.
And I was picking up, so that's just 50, 60, 80-hour shifts at my nursing home job. And then I was also picking up kind of under the table side jobs just to have food and make rent and that stuff. And that involved me not going to class because I needed money.
Yeah.
And that also was at the same time as transferring from community college to a university. So that was a higher caliber as well. Okay. And so there's that roughness as well.
Right.
And then it just really dips down and goes up and dips down because I grew up with the notion of you don't take gap years. You go straight from high school into college and you finish college because if you take a year off, you won't go back. So even though I had thought I had taken steps to fix problems, I was academically dismissed, took a semester off, tried to go back in the fall thinking, okay, here's my new plan of attack. It may not be the best, but I have to go now or I won't go back. And it didn't work out and I was academically dismissed again.
Okay.
So then I moved back home with my parents and got some more financial support and stability there. And that's where you see it start going back up again.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a story, and it is what it is, and we're going to look, a little bit more into this. Now I understand. Why don't we go up to the more detail, which is beside
All
the
right.
MCAT GPA? Yeah, and this is going to give us a little bit better picture of where things are. So we see, if you'll scroll down a little bit more. So we see there a we see a graduate GPA as well. So tell us a little bit about that. You've had graduate work, I take it.
Yeah, so I also didn't have a lot of direction on the pre-med path. And so after I moved back in with my mom and I restarted my undergrad at the university again, I started trying to reach out more to faculty advisors because I didn't have the best experience with pre-med advisors, which I know is not an uncommon story either. And so I got some tough love there, and they told me that I probably am not a great applicant no matter how many undergraduate credits I get at this point, because I already had so many. And that a post-bac is possible, but not ideal because it's, again, just undergraduate classes, no matter how high level they are, and that a graduate course, an SMP of some sort, would better showcase my abilities to perform in medical school with graduate level work. So right now I'm in my second year of Southwestern Reserve's medical or master's in science in medical physiology program. I'm taking 6 credits this summer, and I know my last 3 credits will be this summer, and those won't be on my application if I apply this cycle, June 2021. But I think I have a good shot of getting a 4.0 this semester. I 4.0 the last 2 semesters.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this graduate work. So you're at Case Western doing the medical physiology program, graduate program. So you've got a cum graduate GPA 3.48, which is notably different than the undergraduate cumulative, which is a good news, correct?
Yeah.
So that's awesome news. So I'm very pleased about that. And then we're going to pair that with a great semester that you're thinking this semester.
Yeah, it's the second half of the 2 classes I took last semester, which I 4.0'd, and I'm 2 tests into one class, 1 test in the second class, and I'm sitting at a pretty solid A in both of them, and I believe I can finish strong. So
great.
I really think I can 4.0 this semester on top of it.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. So that graduate GPA is just going to increase. Yeah, that's excellent news. Yeah, really good.
It's a little bit lower right now because there was another curve with the adjustment to graduate level courses, but I found my footing, and as you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with every new beginning, there's a bit of a transition space, and so that makes total sense. Great. So let's go back to the dashboard again.
All righty.
And so we see that this graph really doesn't tell the whole story. This is only the undergraduate graph,
right?
telling the undergraduate story. The GPA and the graph for the graduate work would look a lot different than this. So that's great news. Very, very good. So you should be encouraged by that, right?
Yeah, I get nervous because even though the program's 32 credits, the last 3 credits won't be seen if I apply this semester because I'm taking the last 3 credits in the summer. And obviously my number of undergraduate credits along with that GPA is dragging the whole total cumulative together down.
Right. Now, the good news is that when medical schools are looking at your academic record, they're going to see the GPA cut into a lot of different things, a lot of different pieces. They're going to see, and what's most relevant to you is they're going to see a distinct graduate GPA, and that's going to be notably different. And so, don't think that they're just going to see one number, or they're just going to see one cum number and one science number. That's not how it works. They're going to see that number cut up in a lot of different ways, and they're going to focus in on different things depending on what their process is and what your story is. And so your story that you're going to be telling in your application is about finally kind of getting the picture together for yourself and showing at Case Western that you can do the work. So that's the picture you're showing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's important. That's important to the whole picture. All right. So let's go down to the bottom where we see the MCAT scores, the bottom graph. And then we'll go back up and look at activities and stuff. So what we're seeing on this graph are 4 dates. Now, tell us a little bit about this in terms of what we're looking at here. Are these practice scores? Are these real scores? What is this?
So the first one is a real score. I had talked to a couple admissions committee people or admissions advisors at my top choice med schools, and they had told me with my story and even though my GPA is low, to go ahead and try to apply. And if I get a great MCAT score, then great. And so I still in that I gotta save money mode. I tried to do it on myself and flopped.
Right.
Right. And I figured I could do a twofer because I was also knowing that I wasn't the best applicant, and I was applying to SMP programs as well. And I thought, great, the ones I'm looking at also require either a GRE and an MCAT, and why do twice the work? Let's just do the MCAT.
Right.
And flopped.
Okay, so that first score then there, July 20 of 19, is a real MCAT score.
It is.
Okay.
The second one is a diagnostic. When I had planned to take the MCAT last August, the shortened one, or the shortened test, and then I just wasn't staying on top of studying very well between classes, COVID. I got a new puppy and that stuff. Yeah. So I canceled my date. And then the February is my newest diagnostic. And the last one there is my latest full length. Okay, good. So let's go to the detail of this. If you could go over to the left to right there? Go to MCAT. Okay. Yeah, so this is going to show us exactly what we're looking at. So we see the first MCAT score from 2019. We see the practice test, May 2020. Then the February 21 practice test, and then your latest practice test, which was just last Sunday, right? It was, yeah. And good. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I'm concerned at the minimal increase there.
Well, I think that the increase between your first the 2020 practice test and the blueprint from 21, it's a pretty notable 9-point difference, which is pretty big difference in terms of those two. I
guess I'm just looking at the latest diagnostic and the latest full length.
Yeah, and I think that what you're going to see is different things. Now, what is your target? Oh, I see your target date, April 24.
Yeah, I think I'm registered for the 23rd. I just haven't updated that.
Okay. And you're thinking you're going to be secure with that date, or what are your thoughts about that?
I'm debating. My advisor told me I really, really, really need to try to get a 510 or higher. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm going to make that in a month. Right. I'm looking at taking another practice full length this weekend because I know it's get as many, like you want to take a lot of practice tests, but I don't know if I have done enough review just this week to really even see an increase there either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what I would say is there's always a balance between having an early enough date to be able to get the application in a timely fashion, as opposed to being ready for the exam. It's always a balancing act between those two things. I'm a little concerned that at this point, in terms of recent history, you only have the diagnostic and the one practice test. And I'm wanting to see probably a good, strong, full-length test once a week, at least, over the course of the next few weeks. But that April 24th date only gives you really 3 weeks to study for, take those practice exams, review the work that you've had on the practice exams, and then move forward. So, have you thought about delaying it until a later date, or is that something that you're not interested in doing? Or
I've thought about it. This is the date my advisor suggested for me in case I needed to take it again.
Mm-hmm.
And if I apply this cycle, I have, since I got this score back on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about delaying till the end of May or maybe even in June. But I'm also, the reason I haven't taken, like I'll admit I've been dropping the ball a little bit on MCAT studying because I'm focusing on my classes and GPA.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I don't.
Sure.
Sorry. The other thing I have to think about too is I delayed some federal jury duty because of this test date, and that's supposed to start end of May now.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of moving wheels that I have to try to figure out.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Balancing it all out. Well, I think that, I think, my sense is that if you pushed it back to, even into June, I would say that is not a bad thing. It's not, again, it's balancing between the timing of having your application in as early as possible with being prepared. And if your target score is a 510, I think that's what you said, correct?
Yeah, when I started going into this studying, I was thinking 515, and seeing my most recent score at this time, I'm thinking, okay, even a 510 might be pushing it, and that's like kind of my bottom line number.
Right. Okay. Well, let's get back to that. Let's move on, and then we'll come back to this issue of the MCAT and timing and stuff. So let's move to back to the dashboard, and let's go up and look at activities. So you've got a lot of activities there, 17,436.
And that's not
hours.
Including the under the table jobs that I had mentioned before, because I don't have an inkling of what they were anymore, or who my contacts were, how many hours.
Sure. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. So let's look at the detail of these activities. If you'll go to exactly. And we'll talk about that. So we've got a number of different clubs that you've been a member of. Looks like some community college stuff when you were there. But those are all pretty far away.
They are
2011, 13. That's back when you were at community college, right?
Some of them are. 2 of the clubs are from where I'm at right now.
Okay.
And then one of the clubs was at the end of my undergraduate career at my university.
Right. Okay. CPR instructor for American Red Cross. That's interesting.
So It was kind of a double up there. It was a need that I saw filled at my current job. And so they paid for me to go get certified as an instructor with the intent of teaching at my work. And then COVID happened.
Yes.
So I haven't actually held any classes. I'm certified and I've done a lot of work to try to find ways for my job to let me do it while observing COVID protocols, and I just keep getting told no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully that'll change sometime in the near future. We're all hoping, that things kind of settle down and get better. So, well, good. So if you'll scroll down a little bit, we have 50. So this is early on when you were at I guess, rehabilitation hospital of some sort.
This is the nursing home, rehab, and long-term care center I was clocking in major overtime at.
Right.
And then I moved from that to one of the local hospitals, and I worked as a CNA there. And then in my last year and a half, 2 years, I was cross-trained to a cardiac monitor tech on the same floor.
Okay. So a lot of good clinical experience there. So we have 5,200 hours at the rehabilitation center, and then 1,500 hours at the hospital.
I think I might
as
have
a CNA.
I think I might have separated out the monitor tech and CNA hours. There we go. So that's all of that.
Oh, I see. Okay, good.
Yeah, I separated my hours because I was thinking about counting them as two separate activities on my application.
Right. So because you were doing different things. Yeah, that makes sense. So what we see here basically is, a lot of hours devoted to clinical activities. Most of the hours that you have represented here are going to be in those three activities. So that's great. If we could go to page 2 on that screen and just glance at that as well. So that's where the other CNA thing is for 5,780 hours. And then we have Michigan State University. This is a research technician type of job.
That's where I work now. I'm a safety technician.
Okay.
I joke around with my friends. I'm a glorified tattletale.
Okay.
I calibrate most of the monitors. I enforce OSHA and ISO regulations. I have learned a lot about radiation because it's the cyclotron and lab, and they're building a particle accelerator right now. So it's actually really neat stuff.
Yeah, that's great. So it's relevant to clinical medicine, depending on the type of medicine, radiation oncology, obviously, things like that. But also,
there's a lot of cool experiments. I don't know if I'm technically allowed to talk about them, but some of them relate to call and some of them are not.
Yeah, sure. No worries. So that will continue until you finish at Case Western.
I think I'll probably stay here until I matriculate. It's very financially stable, which is what I've been lacking all through undergrad. And they're pretty flexible with me with my schooling and activities and home life, and it's a really nice balance, which is what I need for dedicating time towards this and still be able to get my work done.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, that sounds appropriate then. Now I see you've got a little bit of shadowing there.
That was right before COVID. And it was really difficult to find since my job is Monday, Friday, 8 to 5, I need to at least be available. And so it's really difficult to find shadowing hours outside of those times.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
a little bit
I've
of shadowing.
followed up with the two. It was actually a program that I found that let me do this. And I tried to follow up with the physicians themselves to see if they'd let me kind of shadow off the books of that program just with the hospital and their stuff. And I got to the point where I felt really annoying emailing them. So I stopped and looked elsewhere.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on that page?
I think I have some virtual shadowing down there. So I'm not doing nothing, but I know it's not the same.
Right. No, but it is what you do what you can do, and so that's great. And has that been interesting and somewhat helpful? The e-shadowing.
It is. It's definitely not the same as what the in-person shadowing was, but I am learning a lot more about I guess the work-life balance, their day-to-day, what they see in those specialties a lot, and the education in the specialties, like how long residency and fellowship was, and how to go about that.
Right.
So it's different information, but I still think it's useful.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so let's look now at final thing I want to look at, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of my thoughts, is the med schools over on the left navigation bar. And these are schools that you're interested in, I guess.
Yeah, it's an incomplete list,
okay.
But it is started. I'll probably look at it more once I get through this semester, some essay pre-writes, and figuring out what I'm doing with my MCAT.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see that you're interested in applying both MD and DO.
Yes. I actually had a really great experience with OMM and a DO during, I guess, a work-related injury as a CNA. And so they sent me to a DO for OMM for my back and it was actually a million times better than I had been in 2 previous car wrecks, and my back had never been the same. And it was better than it was after my second car wreck.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm sure that was a huge relief for you.
It was like a night and day difference.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, well, good. So it looks like you're sort of looking at schools in the upper Midwest. Would you say that's kind of accurate?
I was first looking at, I'm applying to all the schools in Michigan because I'd like to stay in state. It's where my family is. It's where my support network is. And knowing how things went in undergrad, I'm a bit tentative about straying too far away from that.
Sure.
I also have a bit of an outlier up here, which is Kaiser, just because I believe they're offering, I'd have to look into it again, but I think they were offering free tuition to their first 5 graduating classes, which with my financial issues in my past, that's really appealing to me. And I have to look into the school more though.
Yeah.
And then I have Case Western on there because that's where my master's is. And I know they're really heavy research oriented. And even though I don't consider having a lot of research experience, I have 2 activities on there, but I really, really liked the clinical side of the research that I did. And so I don't want to count. I mean, I might be interested in doing research as an MD or DO as well.
Right. Okay, good. Well, that's all, and even research intensive institutions don't require research typically of their.
I believe Case Western does.
Okay.
I think they do.
Okay. Well, a lot of them don't. So, I think, but that's the point of looking and knowing the specific individual institutions that you're applying to and or that you're interested in, so that you can identify what are they looking for and what are their standards, et cetera, things like that. So that's good. Okay. Okay. So let's go back up to your dashboard and let's just talk a little bit. Obviously, you're what I would consider a non-traditional applicant. You've got a sort of a variety of your story is not enormously complicated, but more complicated than a sort of typical 4 years through, undergrad and going straight in and, stuff like that. And so what I would say is that you've done the right thing in terms of going into the graduate program, the SMP. I think that was a good move for you. I think that, based on what you've said, that your performance this semester is going to be and it will be reflected in the application. So, that sounds to me like your GPA is going to be probably, when you calculate those in, what would you say? Something around a 3?
I have that written down, actually.
Yeah.
I come prepared.
Yeah.
So if I 4.0 this semester, it would be a 3.54. And then if I 4.0 the summer semester, which wouldn't be reflected on AMCAS, it would be 3.63 for just the graduate GPA.
Yeah, good. So above a 3.5 either way. So that's a good showing. So I think that, and you've got a lot of good experience in medicine, both as a CNA, the cardiac monitor, as well as, a lot of hours in those two things. And so what medicine is all about, and then add to that the nursing home or the rehabilitation center where you were a CNA as well. So what medicine is all about. You've been around it. You've had a lot of patient contact. This is all going to be very positive stuff for you.
Right.
So I think there's two keys that are apparent to me. One is the MCAT is going to be crucial for you.
Right.
And I do agree with the advice that you got earlier to say that I think a 510 is definitely a target score for you, that is really going to sort of corroborate the graduate GPA that you have, and will draw a picture for the medical schools that you're applying to, that the undergraduate GPA that they're seeing should be discounted. And this is going to be your hope, is that they'll look beyond the undergraduate GPA and they'll look at the graduate GPA distinctly and notice that this is who you really are as things stand now, that you're capable of doing high level work with a good, strong GPA. So that I think is really important. I'm a little concerned about the MCAT score and about taking it here in the next 3 weeks or so. My recommendation would be to delay the MCAT perhaps until even into June, I guess. And because what you want is some good devoted time after the semester is over, between the semester and the beginning of your summer term, to really focus in on the MCAT and begin getting some confidence about your ability to do well on the exam. I think confidence is super important, both in terms of the application process in general, but certainly in terms of the MCAT. You need to have a good, strong sense of confidence that I can do this and I can perform well on this exam. So I think balancing out the timing, if you delayed it until June, you could go ahead and complete the application materials, have them submitted, so that all they're waiting for is that new MCAT score. That would be in the mid to latter part of July, which is still a good timing. I don't think you should worry about that being a delayed timing. Most admissions committees are just by mid to the latter part of July are just kind of barely getting ramped up for the new cycle anyway, because they've been, sort of bringing in the last class. So I would say that would be my recommendation. So what I would say to you is, I'm going to give you a yellow light. A yellow light meaning you're doing all the right stuff. I like the fact that you've done well at Case Western. I like the fact that you have good clinical activities, and even the job that you're doing now is relevant to medicine and to science in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so the key really is telling your story in terms of the application itself, the personal statement, secondary application stuff, is telling the story that you sort of somewhat told us today, is that your contention is going to be, I'm a different person now, that I can focus, and that I am not working 80 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can focus, and I can do a high level amount of work and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to be very important in terms of your personal statement, is going to be crucial, I think, to helping the admissions committees understand this picture that they're seeing. So I think, getting assistance on that, sounds like you've got some people in your life that are going to be able to kind of help you along with that, and give you
Mm-hmm.
some advice and stuff, and readers and things like that you'll be able to bounce things off of. But I think that is going to be crucial. But so I would give you a yellow light for this coming application cycle. Dependent on, I would go ahead and complete the application, have it submitted, all of that. So all they're waiting for is that MCAT score. But I do think, getting in at or around a 510 is going to be pretty important.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Would you recommend like mid-June or late June?
I would say it depends. Now, when does this semester end for you?
I believe April. Yeah, April. And then
End of April?
yeah.
So
I think it's, yeah.
And when does the summer term start?
I don't believe it starts until June, because they
Okay.
have the program has a cumulative test that's required for the degree over 2 of the classes.
Right.
And so they give 2 weeks off, and that test is in just to study for it, and that's in May. And I took that already, but
Okay.
that's how they break up some of the semesters in the spring and summer.
Okay. Well, what I would say is, if you delayed it till the end of June, and that would give you all of May and all of June to study solely on the MCAT.
I will have one summer class that to finish my degree, but that's a 3-credit class instead of right now I'm in 2 3-credit classes.
Right. Okay. So you'll have a more time to focus on the MCAT with the reduction of the course load, right?
And hopefully I'd have more of my essays pre-wrote and edited up, because I'm in the middle of doing that as well.
Right. So I think that's what I would recommend. Pushing I definitely think whatever date you push it to, you would need to kind of determine that on your own. But I definitely think that sticking with that April, I'm very concerned about sticking with that April 24th. And I think delaying it I think you'll benefit more from delaying it than you will disadvantage yourself timeline wise. I don't think there's going to be a big disadvantage, but I think the advantage that you would get from additional study and additional full-length practice tests will outweigh the timing issue.
Okay. That's kind of what I was leaning towards. I just was uncertain.
Yeah. Good. Well, I definitely think you're doing all the right stuff, and you should, feel good about that. And you should definitely feel good about what you've done at Case Western. That's good stuff. And let's keep our fingers crossed on the MCAT score. But I would go ahead and say, send it in and see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. Thank you for being on Am I Ready?